I'll see if you're live yet. I'm on
All
YouTube.
right. Assalamu alaikum,
We're
everyone.
not. We're not live. I don't see myself live on YouTube.
We are live.
You're saying you're live, but it's not live
Yeah,
yet.
there's always a bit of a delay. There's a 10-15 second delay between YouTube and when we start streaming.
Okay.
So that's natural. Anyway, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our new series. We're planning on going through the Bible, Genesis through Revelation. I'm your host, Suhaib, and my co-host, Fahad. Fahad, you want to talk about why we're planning on doing this?
Yeah, we already do a Quran study, kind of a weekly thing, but mainly because we are reaching out to a lot of Christians. We're talking to them. We have a lot of Christian neighbors, and we like to talk to them, but we don't really have the context of what they
Yeah.
believe. We understand their core tenets, the Trinity, a lot of the prophets and stories, and I have a lot of tidbit of information, but truthfully, I haven't read the Bible. So it makes
Mhm.
sense that if we really want to engage with Christians and truly understand where they're coming from, it makes sense to, read their holy book. And we would likewise encourage them to do the same with the Quran. So this is just kind of us putting ourselves out there. And the reason we decided to live stream instead of doing it by ourselves is because we would like engagement from Christians to drop on by. And if they have something to say about what we're reading, go ahead and pitch in and enlighten us. And I think together we can, make our way through the Bible, give our understanding of some verses while also looking at the Christian context.
And yeah, and I'm coming to this with a position of respect, right? I mean, this is clearly a text that has influenced a significant portion of society, of humanity, and continues to influence humanity in a very substantial way, regardless of whatever inconsistencies or parts of it that we feel are not true. It still has influenced mankind in a very substantial way, and we believe as Muslims that there are elements of truth in this. So please, catch me if I'm being, disrespectful or dismissive of things. We still want to approach it with the position of respect. But I think it'll be very interesting to look at this from the light of a regular Muslim, right? I think there might be things that we notice that maybe our Christian cousins might not notice just because we have the background of the Bible. So it'll be interesting. We'll see. Bismillah.
Yeah, and Bismillah, we're saying, and start in the name of Allah or God, right? We're starting with any kind of endeavor. We start with the name of God, just so that there is a blessing in it, and there is, we gain something out of it. All right, so I'm live streaming, so I'll go ahead and start reading, and then maybe we can go back and forth on who reads, but I can start right now. So this is Genesis. This is book one, Genesis 1, and we're using the NIV version. The reason we're using NIV, from what I've read online, correct me if I'm wrong, but NIV is the most up to date on the most oldest copies of the Bible that have been found, and they've constantly been updating it. And I imagine, I think that's what the NIV was made, that accounts for the oldest versions of the manuscripts. All right, so the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated light from darkness, God calling the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. I think you can pause here if you want. Should we pause
Yeah,
after every single verse, or how do you want to do this?
we can just go verse by verse and
Yeah,
see what
sure.
we
Let's
think
go verse by
about it.
verse. I mean, for me, like, yeah, I think this is just, it is, for us Muslims, it's a very different structure, the Bible versus the Quran, because the Quran doesn't start from the beginning. It just kind of essentially is talking to convince you from the start. And this, these verses, from what I'm seeing, they're not verses that are trying to convince the reader, but they're kind of informing the reader of what occurred, right? So these are a lot
Yeah,
more
like if you
informative,
maybe you should pull up the first verse of the Quran too, right? So
just to
the way the
compare.
Quran starts, it's like ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Actually, it's a Fatah. Actually, that's the
Yeah.
that's
So
actually the right.
uh, if we go into reading, do we have the translation by itself?
It's kind of introducing us to who the author is, right?
Yes.
Right now, while we're studying the Bible, these 2 verses, I still don't know who the author is, right? But over here, you want to go through this really quick?
Yeah, we can quickly go, and it's not like necessarily going to go back and forth because it won't really correlate once we get started.
Of course not,
but
this is the opening.
Just to contrast, so the Quran actually starts in chapter 2, but the chapter 1 is more of a supplication. It's an opening supplication, and the idea behind it, and you'll see very quickly from the verses, is in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. So right away, just a quick contrast, we begin with the name of God, and God tells us his two most important attributes that he wants us to know right away, that he's compassionate, he's merciful. All praises for Allah, Lord of the worlds, the most compassionate, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not those you are displeased with or those who are astray. Like I said in the beginning, it truly is about who God is. He's compassionate, he's merciful, he's Lord of the worlds, master of the day of judgment. And then we transition to the supplication part where we are saying we only worship him. Essentially, God's forcing us with our tongues to declare that we only worship him and we only ask him for help. And then we make the actual supplication that we guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, which is very interesting because immediately after you read these verses, then the Quran starts as if to say, this Quran is the answer to the prayer. And that's how Muslims, we understand it.
Yeah, so basically, so far on the Bible side, I don't know who the author is, but it's kind of, I guess it's just describing the beginning of time, right? In the Quran, in Surah Baqarah, the way it starts is it'll be like, this is the book. There is no doubt about it that this is a guide for those mindful of Allah, right? So this is like, okay, those who are God conscious, this is a guide for you. And then important elements of being a Muslim, believe in the unseen, establish prayer. So kind of different start, for sure.
Yeah, so we want to go too deep into that, but essentially that's it's a very contrasting start, and the Quran by no means is sequential in terms of starting with the creation of the earth. No, it jumps around. It immediately even the revelation is not consistent with how it's revealed to the Prophet. It jumps around, right?
Yeah, but the arrangement we believe is still divine. Like
divine,
it was still divinely instructed how it's going to be arranged ultimately, and so there is actually a divine symmetry to the text if you go deeper into it. So again, that's divine authorship. The Bible, at least right now, I don't know who the author is, but it seems like a third-person narrative. Like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Which we agree with. Heavens and earth.
Yeah.
Okay, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Like, what do you think that means? The Spirit of God was hovering over.
So the one thing I would like to say is we should read it in two different contexts, right? Because these first books were revealed to the children of Israel, right? The Jews. And so the Jews, even till this day, they don't have the concept of the Trinity. They don't have the concept of anything else. They believe, basically, they worship the Father. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to see that both, obviously for the Christians, they would review the Spirit of God as the third person of the Trinity, or the second person of the Trinity. I think it's the third person. As a person of the Trinity, hovering over the waters. But for me, as a Muslim, and probably similar for somebody who's Jewish, the Spirit of God, we could say, was God's essentially power or action or will, right? And we're not like personifying it as hovering over the waters. So for me, a lot of this stuff is very much figurative speech mixed with reality, such as God created the heavens and earth. That's true. Now, exactly how that was done, where it was formless and empty, we could take it literally or we could take it figuratively. If we take it literally, it does contrast a little bit with what we know. But if we take it you know, that's fine. But it is interesting because this is not. I wouldn't say it's theological. I don't see any Christians saying that you would lose Christianity if you don't believe something like this, right? It seems,
Mhm.
and then in these verses are not, again, they're not trying to convince anybody of the Bible just yet, right? Of the truth in it. So the only thing I can think of, this is truly informative, and if it's informative, why would God inform of this stuff unless it was worth giving information, right? I always think the speech of God, even if it's inspired speech, it's worth saying, right?
Mhm.
So there must be something. If we're saying this is truly from God, this speech was worth mentioning. This was worth informing the people, all right? Even to me today, knowing how the earth was created should have some kind of meaningful impact. And if you take it that way, then you might have to take it a bit more literally. And if we're taking figuratively, you have to see like what's the message that was trying to be conveyed, right? What's the metaphor?
Well, there is benefit though, right? Clearly we're being told the heavens and earth had a beginning,
Yeah, true.
right? As opposed to being eternal. So that's important.
That's very important.
And then the other thing is, if you look at the "Let there be light," light was good. He separated light from darkness. So there's this
Right.
understanding now that things that are bright or light, like noon in Arabic, right, are good, and that's separate from being darkness. And now there's also this element of, whatever is light is that's day, darkness is nighttime, then there's evening, then there's morning. So I think maybe even the element of just saying good morning, good evening, I guess it's just kind of more rooted in this, that is maybe coming from divine.
Rooted in
I'm not
the
sure if
like
it's-
what God intended, right? Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
maybe that's what God
yeah,
intended for us to say good morning and good evening, because that's in the Bible,
and
perhaps.
it's important.
Good
Like
night.
even in the Quran, God swears by the night. I believe, is he not? Uh,
Yeah,
yes,
in
he
the
swears by
Quran.
the night. So
Walayli
it is.
idha,
If you just think of it, right? We were discussing the other day how powerful it is that humans need to require sleep. Like our bodies have to shut down, right, and have to get up again, right? It is an amazing creation that our bodies must do this, right? It's just very interesting. And then of course God supplementing that with the light and the darkness so that we can rest at night. He
yeah.
forces ourselves to take rest at night, right? And the daytime he created for going out and working. So there is truly something divine and perfection about the universe and how it's created, and how we actually now we understand orbiting the sun and how it gives us night and day and all that stuff. It is a perfection, and God is kind of highlighting that perfection here, and that He is the originator of the light and the dark. It's not necessarily just attributed to the sun, and we don't think beyond that. It ultimately comes from God's design.
Okay. Let me read this next one.
Yeah.
And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. Oh, so that was the first day where you differentiate between
The
light
first
and
thing is
darkness. And then on the second day, he separated water. So it was a water vault on top, then there was separation, then the water vault below, and then the vault was called sky, I guess. And then
essentially
this the
separating. It's essentially separating like the heavens and the earth. So that top area that's called sky, above like the heavens, and then the underneath it is just water. And I think in the water, from what I remember from the Bible, they create land afterwards. So essentially, right now there's lightness and dark. The top is separated into the sky. The bottom is separated into just water. Right.
also, when it comes to the day part, I think it would be fair to assume that this is not a 24-hour day night cycle, right? This could be an inordinate amount of time. The definition of day, I guess it's not clearly mentioned. Or do you think it is a 24-hour cycle because it mentions the Earth?
I mean, if it mentions the earth, it's probably 24 hours. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Of course, this message wasn't sent to people living on Mars or some other universe, right? It was sent to people living on Earth. So I think it's relevant to people living on Earth. And so we would see that.
But even in the
God is
Quran, right?
now the earth was formless, right? He's specifically talking about the earth here, and not just ground. And then there's the day-night life cycle, the cycle.
No, but I'm saying even in the Quran, right, we have this concept that the earth and the sky were created in certain periods of time, right? And they're numbered periods of time. But we don't necessarily believe they're 24-hour periods. They could be.
For us, Islamic
Yeah,
concept is whenever God uses day, it does not necessarily mean 24 hours. Even like the day of judgment will be so many days, but
yeah,
each day for God in another narration is like 1,000 days or 1,000 years. I don't know what that is, but it's a significant difference. But
yeah.
for us in the Quran, many of the scholars translate day as a portion of time, right? It's just a portion of time, and then God uses that. Let's continue. So you just read 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was
Mm.
so. God gathered the dry ground land, and he gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. So, like I said, I think this is the creation of the earth. Heavens and earth, light was created, separating the heavens from the water, and then now from the water, uh, dry ground appears and essentially formed the land masses on earth. Then I'll read
The other thing, by the way, it seems like there's not a mention of there's not a lot of mention of sun necessarily, and the element of morning and evening can happen independent of the sun, right? There's lightness, there's light, there's darkness, and I guess that may be why a lot of the rationalists or I guess in the Renaissance and stuff, people wanted to separate from the church because they felt it was not scientific. I'm just saying these could be verses that they potentially use to make an argument against religion not being scientific and thus maybe not true.
Yeah, to me, it's
But I think they make the argument always.
creation. It's like it's the creation story that many of scriptures around the world always start with some kind of creation story, and in the Christian or and Jewish context, this is the creation story, right? Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on their land that bear fruit with seed in it according to the various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, and the third day. If we just view this as kind of proof, like if you look at the plants and the trees and the variety that you get from the same exact ingredients, which is sunlight, water, soil, and the variety of vegetation you get and the variety of fruits you get and vegetables, it's astounding. It in itself is a miracle, right? In a way, you could see these verses as miracles, right? God's taking us to make us see the light in the day, the vast oceans, the lands, right? The immense vegetation that bore fruits according to their various kinds, right? It's mentioning different types of food. And this is similar, very similar to what we have in our literature about the nature of fruits and how that is a sign from God. And I can
But
see the same
the,
exact
the
way
other
here.
thing, the other thing I would mention is this rejects the concept of evolution, and in fact, in a much more stronger way than what we necessarily have to believe in Islam, right? If
Yeah.
you look at Yasir Qadhi and others, they will mention that you need to believe that humans were definitely created by God and sent to the earth. They did not evolve out of cells. But we don't necessarily have to believe that for plants
For animals.
and other things, right? But this, at least in the Bible, even for plants, they were created on the spot. There was no evolution. You can't believe in it. I think being a Christian, which
Yeah.
I'm on
It's
board
interesting.
with.
Even for me personally, evolution, the way it's described in textbooks, it's a long shot. To me personally, it's nonsense. Not that God can't use mechanisms to do that, but just the way it's described and stipulated, it does seem a bit fairy tale-ish. But that's besides the point. But yeah, you are right to point out that clearly from the biblical text, you can't believe in it.
There's no way. Just based on these verses alone, regardless of humans, just plants,
Yeah.
you
You're
can't.
right. So how about we just go passage by passage? You want to read the passage, and then I'll read the next passage.
Okay. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years." So, probably the stars, right? "And
Yeah.
let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God sent them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day.
I'm sure reading this, the same thing jumped out to you as me, based on the Quran, and it's the verse of God made two great lights, because it's describing essentially the sun and the moon as lights.
Mhm.
And interesting thing to point out from the Quran is the moon is not described as a light source. It's
Yes.
the Quran. It's very specific. The moon is described as a reflected light. It uses a very different term, and that term is a reflected light, which we know today. The moon is not a star. It doesn't produce its own light. It has a reflection light. Not that this would immediately, in my eyes, discount the Bible, right?
Mhm.
It's fine. You could just say that the Bible is using more poetic and looser terminology just to address God's creation, and
Yeah.
while the Quran is being a bit more precise in this case, right? Um, I wouldn't say that this would discount the Bible. I think it just gives a little bit more credence to uh, at least the Quran a bit. It's one of the proofs, because definitely at the time when the Quran was revealed, that knowledge wasn't there. Nobody
Mhm.
was thinking that the moon is a reflected light from the sun. So that is something that just does not fit the knowledge of the people at that time, and especially of 7th century Arabia. But yeah, that's why that immediately as a Muslim, this jumps out to me
Yeah.
as something very different between the Bible and the Quran. The Quran does describe the moon as not a light source, but a reflected light.
Also, this further solidifies the idea in my mind that these are not 24-hour day cycles, daylight cycles, because clearly the sun is being created on the fourth day,
Yeah,
or sorry, the third day, right? The sun and the moon and all of these have been created at this time period. So to claim that this is a specific day, night, like 24-hour period, I think is even less likely in this case.
yeah, and then obviously God does things within time. Obviously, right? He created Adam, and then he created Moses, right? And to us, it's within a time period. Now, time is not necessarily governed by day and night. Just time is a function of, it's time. So uh, God is kind of laying out, at least the Bible is laying out exactly the sequence of order of the creation
Mhm.
of, our understanding of the universe. And by using fourth day, it's like, Sohaib said, I think it's just a segment of time. Okay, I can go next. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird, and according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. So interestingly here, the evening and the morning, I guess now it's saying evening and morning.
It was
Before
saying that all the
it was
time.
the whole time,
Yeah, evening and the morning from the start.
which is interesting because I guess the first thing was created was light. So in a sense, there was an evening and the morning.
There's a bit of a rhythm to it in a
Yeah,
way.
there's a little bit of rhythm to it, but yeah, don't know how to look at that sense there's evening and morning. But either way, I think um, you wouldn't say it's a normal daylight cycle. And yeah, so here it's clearly saying it's talking about now the creatures living on the earth, and God again created them very distinct according to their own kind. So it really does negate evolution. You can't believe in that if you are a Christian. or a Jew, if you believe, the Genesis is for both. So you would have to, negate evolution for sure. And it says be fruitful and multiply. And again, this is like, as a Muslim, in the way you look at the Quran, because the Quran is very explicit, every single verse is called ayat in the Quran. And ayat it doesn't mean verse, because not necessarily it means a sentence, right? Ayat means a sign. We consider every single statement in the Quran a sign from God to the truth. Like each statement should convince you of the truth, right? And so it's very difficult for me to separate that when reading the Bible as purely informative. So to me, when I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is from God, God wanted me to know this. Every single verse should speak to me, proving the validity of the book, right? Every single verse. There's going to be a single verse that doesn't do that, or at least in meaning. Of course, this is the translation of a translation.
But in the Bible, at least, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Things can just be purely informative, I believe. Because first, as I said, the author is still unknown as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but you have to take a little bit of theology, Christian theology, that this is you know what, I am interested to see. Genesis is the Old Testament, right? So Genesis was revealed. Let me see if I just open, I don't know if ChatGPT works on like incognito, but Genesis was revealed to who, right? And I think this is Moses, right? These are the books of the Old Testament. To Moses, right?
You're going to have to zoom in a little bit there.
Yeah, so let me just increase this.
Okay.
So yeah, Genesis is revealed to Moses along with Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is the first 5 books, they count as a Torah, right? So if this was revealed to Moses, and both the Jews and the Christians believe that, then this is not inspired work. These 5 books are considered inspired work or the speech of God. Because I think these books are a little different. Direct word of God.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we're talking about Old Testament here, right? Especially the 5 books. Okay?
Oh.
The first 5 books are considered the direct speech of God. The New Testament is inspired works. It's very different, right?
Okay, so these are supposed to be like Quran, like
yes, that's why I'm saying
actual words of God.
Is divinely inspired. So they say it's divinely inspired. God is the ultimate author. The human authorship is Moses. So Christianity attributes the authorship to Moses. Well, okay. Judaism.
So this will be different read then compared to the New Testament, right? We could still, from our paradigm.
And like the Jews, Moses wrote it down exactly the way God revealed it, which is similar to what we would say about the prophet, right?
Okay. Right? So we don't need to mind bend too much. Like we can read it like we would as if the Quran, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like these first books, I'm really interested in the first 5 books because it is the Torah, right? It is what the attributes.
This is the Torah,
right? And this is what we believe. We believe in the Torah. So this will be the closest that we have to the Torah today that others at least claim is the Torah. Although we believe, obviously, stuff might have been lost, but this, we should read this as a Torah. Essentially, like this is direct speech of God revealed to Moses,
with some potential corruption, unfortunately.
In our mind. Again, we don't want to read it in that state. We want to read it as if God's talking to us and what each verse would mean in that sense.
Would you say it's encouraged for us to read the Torah, like Islamically?
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary, but would it be considered a good action? Would it be considered a good action?
You're engaging with them. It's again not completely necessary, but it's extremely insightful that you know where they're coming from.
Are you reading a comment?
No, I'm just saying it. I'm just saying that.
Okay. No, I'm just saying, like, do you think Islamically it's reward worthy to try to read the previous text, even though it has a lot of untruths potentially?
I mean, our scholars did. Our scholars, they actually read the previous texts, and if nothing in that text, like a lot of our stories of the prophets, because the Quran's really different. It doesn't try to narrate every single story of the prophet from their entire life, right? It just for us, the Quran basically only narrates the parts and leaves out names and lineages and everything. Only narrates the parts that are directly meant to that we need to know, like on a need to know basis, exactly what we need to know. That's why the Quran is quite a bit shorter than that. So let's see how many more verses are left in this. And
Oh,
yeah,
hey, we have Saad joining.
oh, we have Sajwan. Okay, yeah, we
Yeah.
only have a few verses. We'll just finish with Genesis 1. This is our first stream, so we
Let me try adding Saad really quick. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
hello. He's joining us from the hospital.
The hospital.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Good.
So yeah, we just went through a few verses. Basically, the creation story. So far, what we found is that the Bible. This is, by the way, Genesis. This is Torah. Okay, so this is what was directly said by God and written down by Moses.
According to Jews, it is direct speech of God written down by Moses. According to Christians, it's still inspired to Moses.
Yeah. And so far, we've read about all the different days of creation, right? The first day, there was light and darkness. Second day, there was two bodies of water. One was the sky, one became the earth. Third day, plants. Fourth day, like a sun and moon. And then fifth day, living creatures. So we're kind of just going along.
So let's go to the sixth day.
Okay.
And
I'll read this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. So this sounds a little bit like in the Quran, where we have the mention of Allah Ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created animals, created creatures that walk on 2 feet, walk on 4 feet, that walk on their bellies, right? That move around on their bellies. So
And some are
creatures of
domesticated.
every kind, right? Many, many different kinds of creatures. And to each creature, God has given the ability to kind of, fend for itself or, seek out the sustenance from God. So sounds a little bit similar. The other thing I wanted to comment on was, I like how it says, "and it was so," kind of like in the Quran, we have this concept that God can just say be, and it is.
Kun
right?
kun fayakun, right? Be and it is.
Kun
Exactly.
fayakun, exactly, right?
Yeah.
It seems a lot like that.
Yeah. Also, maybe you guys already talked about this, but I'm just. This is a similar story in the Quran. Just the way, maybe this is a translation problem, but it says, "And God said." This is very different than the New Testament. New Testament doesn't read like this. This is more similar to the Quran than the New Testament appears. Because the New Testament is like humans writing about what they observed, right? And this is kind of like that too. It's like if I spoke to God and I would say, "And God said," something such. But the Quran is a bit different than this. But this is closer to that than the New Testament for sure.
Yeah, we discussed that at the beginning too, but I agree. And this did copy, because I don't think these words were in the previous verses, or else I might have paid attention.
No, it was
to
there in the 11th verse, roughly, and it was so.
And it was so.
9th.
And it was so. Okay, maybe we didn't catch on to it, but yeah, it makes sense. This is essentially, as Muslims, we believe that God just speaks, and it is. Right? He just speaks, and it is, and it seems like these are the words of God because it's quoted, right? And it was so, right? God's saying, like a command, "Let the lands produce," and it was so, and essentially all the animals were created, which is very similar. I would have no problem with this, right? This is very similar to how we would understand creation as well. God commands, and it is so. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So this, I would say, it depends on how you take it, but it's in direct contention with what we as Muslims believe, right? Because there's two things there. One, for us, in which surah is it? Basically, there is none like him, we have this concept of in Islam that if you imagine God, that's not how God is, right? It's impossible to imagine God. Now, in terms of our image and our likeness, if I was giving a charitable reading that would fit within our paradigm, right? And I don't know how the Jews actually take this, if they actually do view God in the direct likeness of man, but it would be like we can feel compassion, we can feel mercy, we understand justice, right? While God is maximally just and maximally compassionate and maximally self-sufficient, right? We have those attributes that are similar to God's, but not maximally divine, right?
Right. So we're in those exactly. We can also show mercy, but God is most merciful, right? And so we are similar to God in attributes, but not divinity or shape or form or in any physical sense.
Yeah, and God
And
is the
also,
creator, and He's the ultimate creator.
Right.
And however, we also can create, and there is a distinction between our level of creation and, let's say, an animal's level of creation, right? So
but
there's
those
some,
are attributes. Those are attributes.
yes,
That's still different because what this text is saying that let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, like
like
not
this,
quality, like physically in our likeness. I think in our image, and we can. By the way, in the Quran, we can make strong argument that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has hands or that He has a face and He has these things, but what we also caveat with that is whatever you imagine that hand to be, it's not that, right? It's figured like conceptually there are these elements, but is it like our hand? No. Okay. Anything you can think of, as you said, if you're imagining God as being something, it's not that. It's beyond our imagination. While we still recognize what God has said, that He has a hand or that He has a face, and He references these things as they come along.
yeah, because
Um,
it is very clearly in the Quran that He's unlike anything in His creation,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So for us, that is a major stipulation. It's almost like, we cannot describe a color we've never seen. That's the closest we can think of, right? In a sense, God is unlike any creation. So it's because of that. You even see in movies, it doesn't matter how hard they try, when they try to create a new creature, it's just a derivative work of what exists in nature already. Humans can only ever create derivative works and nothing truly original, right? And but God can create something original, and what He has created is nothing like Himself.
And that's what
The
we're
other
doing. I
thing,
mean, for airplanes, we're trying to mimic birds. And in our sci-fi novels, let's say like in Dune, the orthopter or whatever they have, it literally mimics like a dragonfly or something, right? And so literally all our, you can say, most advanced creations are almost always a mimicry of what we see in nature, what God has already created.
the other thing is, I find it interesting. The latter part of that verse is it sounds a lot like Khalifa al like how Muslims, or how mankind has been created as a successor or representative of God in the sense that livestock are subservient to you, I guess, or that you're welcome to hunt animals and eat them. Of course, you can't torture them or unnecessarily harm them, but you are allowed to responsibly use them as you need to, right?
Yeah. All right. So that I read that. Saudi, want to read 26?
27, you mean?
Then, oh,
Oh,
okay, then 27. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them.
Which, again, I find like the image verbology is very different, because does God look, if you go directly into this idea that we are created in God's image, does God look more like a man or a woman? like, because there's clear distinction between men and women, right? So I still, my reading would still not be a like, even though it says very clearly likeness, which is very hard to argue against. Like this we would, as Muslims, we would just reject, right outright.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Image, you could
But
kind of play
image,
with it.
we don't really know what that means. I think it would be nice to have some kind of Christian in the comments who could maybe tell us if we had
Well, image, they
Um,
would say that
what
because
image, what they understand by that, you know?
because whenever they portray the Father and Jesus, they don't never portray the Holy Spirit that way, but they do portray man-like. And then they I've seen a lot of these sermons and stuff, and they do literally believe that we were created in image. Now, actually, this is something probably just it's the worst thing to do, ChatGPT, but I would love to see what the Jewish interpretation of that is. And I'm just going to copy this and just kind of ask to see. Probably should do more research beforehand, but we're almost done, I think. So let me see. What
It's a start.
what do the Jews think of when it says image and like this? Oh. Physical form at all. So again, if we check to the
Do not mean physical
we
form.
understand it the way it was revealed to the original people. They don't take it to mean physical form at all.
Okay.
Intellect, moral consciousness, free will, a soul, authority, responsibility.
Yeah, but we don't think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a soul. We don't think God has a soul
Right.
in that sense. I think that He created us with soul. He put the soul in us.
No, I think it means free will. We do believe God has free will to do.
Yeah, but again, this is ChatGPT summary, so maybe we shouldn't take it verbatim as what Jews believe. But yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, even they wouldn't. I just wanted to know one thing: the Jews who the Torah was originally revealed to, at least they're people how they understand it today. It's not physical likeness, which is kind of our understanding, and that's how we would generally interpret it into the attributes and other things, and not physical.
Yeah,
likeness.
but I bet the Christian understanding is probably more physical.
It is 100%. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, it is a physical likeness.
They do. I mean, at least even when you hear the preachers and pastors and stuff on YouTube or whatever, it's often like this, like literally in this form. Yeah.
All right, so we have 3 verses left, so let's just finish this so we can wrap this one up. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." And I'll just read the next one. Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. So, what you said earlier that God created all this for us to use and consume. It doesn't say the animals were made for us to consume, at least according to this verse.
No,
Because
beasts of the
like-
earth, all the beasts of the earth, all the creatures that move on the ground, literally everything.
No.
Like the earth is for you to subdue. It's
and
pretty.
to all the beasts. So I give you, meaning men and women, all the seed-bearing plants and every tree with fruits in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth. Now God is talking to the beasts and the birds in the sky that move along the ground. Everything that has a breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food.
Yeah,
Oh.
He's giving humankind and beasts, the animals, plants.
No, green plant. So the fruits are given to the fruits are specifically called out to give to the seed-bearing plants. The seed-bearing plants and fruits are given to men, while the green plant, like grass, that's not necessarily has seed in it, is given to the creatures.
But this reminds me, the Seventh-day Adventists, they often are vegetarian and or vegan. And I think they derive it from this, where I've asked them, at least one of my colleagues, I asked him during residency, and he had said, he's like, "Oh, it's because we believe that even though while Christ did eat meat, now he didn't eat pork because he was a Jew, but Christ did eat meat, his intention and the way you can say kind of the laws were forming, his intention was to eventually, had he lived that long, was to go vegetarian, basically, or vegan for his people."
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is interesting because to us, the Muslim concept of prophet is a living and breathing example of how to live life. Now, of course, it doesn't really equate with the stories of the prophets in the Bible. That's how we consider it. So if we consider Jesus a prophet, if he lived and ate meat, then it was a living and breathing example of what you should do. And if he was living and avoided pork, it was living and breathing example of what you should do. Although I am just interested, if we just go by this verse, it seems like we should be vegetarian. If we just go by this verse.
Although I guess the previous one, the 28th verse, does say rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and every living creature on the ground, which I guess maybe you deal with them responsibly.
I guess you can.
Also, there is a clear exhortation to be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth, basically, with your own population and subdue it.
But I think, obviously, it's too early to be making conclusions based off these early, because it could be who knows what comes later. And the Quran, I'm not sure if the Bible has the concept of abrogation, where because we know the Quran was revealed like piecemeal, right, and like at different times, we know that, for example, alcohol was prohibited over time, right? And so there's ayat in the Quran that mention, or verses in the Quran that mention that you're allowed to drink alcohol, and later it says, actually, you can't at all. And I wonder if the Bible has a similar concept.
If the scholars, the way they take that, if you read it a certain way, there is actually no abrogation. It's just if you're praying, don't drink alcohol. Make sure you haven't drank alcohol. It doesn't necessarily mean it's okay to drink alcohol, because it wasn't banned yet, but it's still fine. Like if you do pray, don't come to the mosque and drink alcohol, your breath will smell, right? It still applies. Like, yes, Muslims probably can sit and drink alcohol, and that's the verse would still apply to them. It's not necessarily abrogated, right? But going back to this, again, it's just interesting to contrast. These are the first verses that I would imagine the Jewish people would be reading. This is the first things God wants them to know. Outside the Ten Commandments, I have to say the Ten Commandments are separate, but these are the first verses outside the Ten Commandments. Like,
we didn't finish this, by the way.
What?
We did finish the last verse.
Yeah, we just have one last one. You want to read it?
Sure. God saw all that he made, and it was very good. It didn't use very before, by the way. It was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day.
Yeah, there was evening and the morning, there was the sixth day.
But it said it was very good, because previously it was say God saw what he made and it was good. Now, after all of this, God saw all that he made and it was very good.
This is
which is interesting from a metacognition standpoint. It's like, okay, so God can make something and then reassess if it's good.
Not reassess, but
it's just
he's declaring.
Declaring it was.
God's not changing his mind here. He's declaring, right? But what I find interesting is actually this is if you take it from Islamic concept, we don't believe God ever does evil, right? Every single aspect of creation of God is good, and we even say that we might not understand in like the if you just look at a microscope, it might be bad, but we don't necessarily think that God himself does actions that are evil, right? God allows us to have free will and allows us to maybe commit evil and sin, but that is very different from God taking that action, right?
He defines God's actions define good, in essence, right?
Yes.
If God does something, it is good,
in essence.
Yeah, that's what good. That's what defines good. Good is what God does or says. That's it, right?
Yeah, I thought this was all interesting. From one thing we concluded that they can't believe in evolution, but for the most part, there's nothing here strongly I would disagree with as a Muslim. Like to be honest, what I've read here strongly I would disagree with. I would of course disagree with the Christian understanding of in our likeness. I would go more with the Jewish understanding of what that means. But that's the only thing I would say that I would strongly kind of disagree with. But other than that, there's nothing here I would disagree with. I would agree with Genesis 1 wholeheartedly, no problem as a Muslim.
All right, that was awesome. That was great. Alhamdulillah. All thanks is to Allah. All praises to Allah. Hopefully, we continue this regularly and hopefully at a more scheduled time. But this was great.
Yeah. Like, comment, subscribe if you guys are already there. Actually, apparently there's 3 people in this. It's just us and Stat. I don't know how many people are live, but it's gonna be posted, so maybe we get some viewers after
people
that.
watching this, don't worry.
Yeah, maybe we get viewers after that. But again, this
It's something we wanted to do anyway. Viewership is just
it's
Hey,
so-
this is the long game. We are doing this ultimately to learn ourselves. Like, I've never read the Bible
yeah.
ever properly.
Well, I have.
I want to go through it. I would love going through it with you guys, just discussing. And if we get more people pitching in along the way, sharing their thoughts, Christians in particular, that'd be great.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get a version of the Bible where we can maybe click it and get a short commentary and exegesis the way we do in the Quran, where we're reading something, and if we don't even understand the context behind it, maybe we can quickly look at something, glance through it, and be like, oh, I'm sure we can do our homework before we come in, or or just be able to quickly see and see some footnotes or see something that gives us context really quickly, right?
Or we could build something.
Anyways, we could probably. But yeah, that was great. And we'll probably come back. We're gonna try doing this at the cadence of once per week. We just gotta figure out which day we're gonna do it, and then we'll announce that, and then we'll try keeping that schedule from now on, so that you guys can join us.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
How do I end the stream? End stream.